Oh, and right here at the end, I'm going to play the Q&A session because the cast have some interesting stories to share. They share their favorite Easter eggs and some interesting
totally
stories.
listen to it. It was really good.
Check it out. It's like 15 minutes. I'll tack it on here at the end. Enjoy, guys. Special Angry Joe, a special guest Steven Spielberg on the Angry Joe Show.
Yeah.
DVD commentary early. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Check it out.
Well, thank you for a hell of a ride. That was awesome. Set the gals if you want to line up. We have time for a few questions. Not going to go all night for sure. We'll just start with Mr. Spielberg. Thank you. And you know what an ambitious, crazy blend of reality and gaming, and it must have been so many challenges.
Let me first say, this is perhaps the greatest anxiety attack I've ever had. Any question?
Well, actually, let's hear more about that. Why particularly nervous? Because, I mean, it's such an unusual blend.
Here's the thing. When I make a movie that I direct behind the camera, and I made a whole bunch of movies, historical films, like The Post and Bridge of Spies, where I directed behind the camera, you know, I kind of am pretty much in control of that. But when I decide to make a movie sitting in the audience with you, and I direct a film in the seat right next to you, that means I'm making the picture for you. And your reaction is everything. Everything. Thank you.
I'll start with Ty, because Ty's been here before, and we've been thrilled to have him in a number of roles, but how exciting is this for you?
How excited? My whole family's here. They're parents here, cousins, best friends. No, this is like the best 2 hours of my whole life. Except for the part where the movie stopped and the sound wasn't working. That kind of sucked. But it did kind of build it up, did it not? I'm so thrilled to be here. I mean, I just this is all, it's like a dream. I'm over the moon. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We'll start with over there.
First of all, Mr. Spielberg, I just want to say you are the person who inspired me to become a filmmaker, so thank you for that.
Do it.
My question is for both you and Ernest, what was when you made the connection, for you, what was the moment when you were reading the book and say, hey, I want to make this a movie? For Ernest, what was your first reaction when you got a call and was like, hey, these are Steven Spielberg's people, can we make your book into a movie?
Well, the thing, before I read the book, I read the script by Ernest Cline. Ernest did an adaptation of the book, and with Zach Penn, and that was the first thing I ever read. But when I read the book, the scene that made me say completely yes to the film was a 4-page dialogue scene between Parzival and Artemis. It's the most they ever talk in the book together. And I said, if I can capture that in a bottle, if I can get that and reduce it to a movie length, to get that relationship between Parzival and Artemis, this will be a movie worth making. Because this is a character movie as well as a big action movie.
Thank you very much.
And well, you know, when they told me that Stephen was going to read the screenplay, I got really depressed. Because at first I was really excited, then I was like, well, you know, that's never going to happen. He's gonna decide not to do it. And then I'm gonna have to spend the whole rest of my life imagining what it would have been like if Steven Spielberg had made Ready Player One. So it was like the longest couple weeks of my life while he was deciding, while I was rewatching all of his movies and listening to John Williams nonstop, and then I heard he was going to do it, and every day since then has been like better than the last. So thank you guys so much for being such a great
I'm not normally nervous in front of a microphone, except for when Steven Spielberg's on stage. So, as a journalist, I'm going to go a little bit from my notes. A comment that leads into my question, especially now in a time when so many of us want to escape from reality and the things that are going on in the world, it is so wonderful and encouraging and thrilling to be in an audience that when a film stops, we all cheer along with the movie as it comes back, because we have the joy of the collaborative play that we had on the playground as kids. The one bit where they're throwing imaginary things to each other when they're in the van immediately conjured that. So my question to each of you is there a favorite toy that was used in the toy box in the movie? You know, whether it was the Gundam, the Mechagodzilla, something in particular that really just tickled you individually, that you loved seeing in film?
Chucky was pretty cool. I used to be scared of Chucky. I used to to watch those movies. But now, like, I'm not scared anymore, so it's nice I get to use the thing that used to scare me as a weapon in the movie. In a Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah, Godzilla.
I've got to say Chucky as well, especially the bit where we're trying to get him out of the car and we end up punching Chucky in the face before he gets unleashed onto people.
Yeah, I'll probably say Chucky too. I'm just gonna hop on the bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely Gundam.
The one thing that none of you should talk about, The Shining.
Yeah, The Shining!
I'm kind of cross between the DeLorean and the Iron Giant. The Iron Giant's like my childhood hero. I gotta
Superman!
And for me, it's Parzival's DeLorean. You know, that's something that made it all the way from the book into my real life and then into the movie. So it's my favorite.
And to me, it was being able to bring the Iron Giant back to life. Discussing it with ILM, and and this is also, all this is, please, preserve the secret of the movie, because you're part of our family now, but it's Iron Giant's last film.
This is a question for Steven Spielberg. This was the third time you worked with Mark Rylance. I was wondering what the process was with directing him on this movie, and if you're going to continue working with him even more.
Well, I'm crazy about Mark Rylance, obviously, because this is the third movie we've made together. And what really led me to this decision to see if Mark would want to do this is he has not lost his childhood. You know, there's a little boy alive and thriving in Mark. And I just thought that there was something both very, very connected with the world and something also a little bit removed, a little bit ethereal about Mark. And that's the way they wrote Halliday. And I just remember saying, to Mark, when I approached him on this, and I said, I'd love you to be in a movie and play two roles. He said, oh, I'd love to play two roles in the film. And I said, well, you get to play yourself and your avatar alter ego. And I remember before I even gave him the script to read, I talked him through the movie, and before he ever read the script, he signed up to do it.
Really good movie, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I love the book. and I was so excited to hear that a movie was coming out. Could y'all talk about the process of the adaptation? I remember really loving like sort of the educational theme that continued on in the movie, that education is this way that we can rise up and be motivated by it. But that first quest was amazing. So please talk about that.
Thank you.
Really total team effort for 3 years on one screenplay, which the reason why so many movies you see are so bad is because directors don't take the writers who they need and who they like and keep them in a team, and that is not the way Steven Spielberg works. He had me and Ernie all the way through. We worked on this together. The storyboard art. There's so many people worked on this movie who deserve credit for it, but this is like a case study in working on a screenplay to the maximum amount that you can, with everybody bringing their expertise to the table. So that was the process. It was kind of, as I say to these guys, they're in their own bubble, where, you know, Steven Spielberg bubble, where everything works as it should be. And then there's Hollywood outside, where everything's totally screwed up. So.
I want to live in that bubble that he creates, where it's just you feel, you know, when the first time you meet Steven, I think everybody is they've overthought their wardrobe and they just had a haircut and they're really nervous, and I think he's experienced that so much that when you meet him, he sets you at ease and then immediately starts to make you feel like a collaborator. And I felt, you know, like he was such a fan of my book and invested in making the best adaptation possible. And you know, I had a bad experience with my first movie. I've only made 2 movies, and this is the kind of the worst experience you can have, followed by the best experience you can have. And so I'm so grateful to everyone up here for this movie. It's just wonderful.
I have to throw one with
Thank you.
you know, my wife she was jogging, and every day when she went out and ran, she listened to the book on tape, and this is not her kind of story. Gaming, she never played a video game in her life. Like I said before, you don't have to play a video game to understand the story, but she heard the entire book on tape, and she came back to me after 3 days, and she said, and I'd already sort of decided to do it, she said, "Oh, no, there's no decision to be made. You're making this movie."
Thank you, Kate.
Oh, you just made the post and you had it, award run at that, and now you're about to release. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. Ready Player One. How hard is it to manage, making these massive projects concurrently and having projects coming in constantly? And also, I've seen Jaws 47 times. Since
They should have worn my Jaws socks today. I think. I essentially, ever since I was really little and making all kinds of 8mm movies and then graduating to 16 to 35, I never just did one thing at the same time, because I found when I had multiple projects and I would get lost in one, I'd come back to the other one with complete clarity. And my objectivity is the thing that I fear the most losing. The second I become too subjective about something and I get too inside the story and I can't see it anymore, I can't see it from the audience's point of view anymore. So by doing several things at the same time, I get to have a renewal of objectivity. And The Post was a special situation. But I've done other films. I did Jaws and Schindler's List in the same years. Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. Had a little brain freeze there. And that really was the opposite of what I'm telling you. That was a horrible experience because I didn't want to be approving dinosaur shots when I was in Poland telling a story of the Holocaust. So it works and it doesn't work sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there were some of us who picked up the book and chose not to eat or sleep until we finished it.
Thank you.
So my question is, were there any elements that you were concerned about for those book purists translating onto film, whether it was casting or there were certain themes, anything that you may have had to omit or include that may translate a little bit differently in film? And so how did you handle that?
That was only a concern for me before Steven Spielberg was attached. Up to that point, I was nervous. I felt like I'm not sure how far away. It had moved further away from my book than I was comfortable with, and then Zach brought it a little further back. And then when Steven came on board, Zach called me and told me about this first meeting when Steven came in with like 50-some Post-it notes in the novel of things he wanted put back into the movie that had been taken out. And from once I heard that, then I haven't worried a single moment, since then. All of my favorite book to film adaptations, like Jaws, have taken huge liberties with the source material and made drastic changes because you have to. They're two different mediums with two different needs and different strengths. So you always have to rework things, even Tolkien, And so I was at home with that and fine with it and felt comfortable because I was working with people that I trusted. So I feel like there are parts in this parts of the dialogue in this film that are verbatim from the book. And sometimes Stephen would even take pictures of the book and send them to different departments or to Zach and say, just do this. And so there are moments that are just translated literally, and I'm so happy about that. But I feel like the changes that we made make it a fun read and interesting and a surprise for fans of the book. Do you feel like you were surprised, but still it captured the spirit of the book, right? Don't you feel like this movie captures the spirit of the book? Me too.
Sorry, we're actually moving on. This is actually my last question. I hate to say, go ahead, make it quick.
I'll make it good. We heard everyone's favorite character. Since this is a movie about Easter eggs, there were a ton of them in there. I think the audience noticed different ones. Not everyone noticed everything. What was your favorite little secret throw-in from the past?
Oh, I'm going to kick off. Okay, it's the Thames. No, they can hear me. Temptations playing in the first scene with them.
Yeah.
Just my imagination running away with me. All that.
I can come up with some Easter eggs. There are a few million in there for you to find. Some of them, we had ILM doing the special effects inside the Oasis, and then Digital Domain did the real world special effects. And both, I think, special effects teams hid stuff in the movie that I'm not even sure we're completely aware of. But some of my favorites are the ones that we convinced Steven to make reference to his own movies. I love seeing the T-Rex. When the orb of Osteobox is pulled out of the box, it's the box from Gremlins that Israel was in. Stuff like that. So there's we had to really convince him for stuff like that, but it warms my heart.
And they didn't ask my permission sometimes. Because I didn't want this to become a vanity, album of my 1980s movies. And so yes, I kept a lot of things out of the films I made in the 80s, but I would be looking, we also, Donald DeWine and Chris Faria and we had a great team every single day looking at the effects evolving over a 2-year period. And we made 7 passes on one shot, and it was the last pass where I approved a final. It's hard to go back after you approve a final, where I said, shit, is that a gremlin? Which ILM had snuck in.
Spoilers. And thank you for one of the most exciting nights we've ever had. Thank you for being here.
Okay, welcome to the spoiler section. Yay! I promise you we haven't been wearing the same clothes for a month.
I have.
And, oh, Jesus. Well, actually, I haven't washed this shirt in a little while, so I need to, no. So let's jump right into the spoilers. I guess I love the fact that, obviously because I'm developing the Street Fighter miniatures game, I love that Street Fighter was involved. The main character even does a Hadouken to defeat the final boss. I love that Mortal Kombat was so involved. We get to see Goro. We get to see aliens.
Yeah.
My favorite film of all time, Aliens. A chest burster from Goro. This shit is crazy. We see a reference to Star Trek from the creator of this Oasis world, which immediately endeared me to the creator of the world, which we didn't really get much into, in fact, in our review. That guy was just a precious old man.
Yes.
I just loved that guy.
You just want to go hang out with him.
Yeah, and these Easter eggs where I thought it was going to be a stupid-ass journey, it turned out to be fascinating mysteries. What was the first one?
The race.
The race, right? Where he goes backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's absolutely
genius.
Not in the book at all.
Oh, okay.
Nothing about a race, and like the contest is wildly different. None of those characters know each other. Like H knows each other. IROC is actually a friend of theirs at the beginning, and that's why.
Who's IROC?
IROC's the Dell guy.
Dell guy.
Yeah, and so like
Thought so.
it sets up this whole betrayal thing. Like it's wildly different from the very start.
Yeah,
But
I kept expecting IROC to switch sides, but he didn't really.
No, not at all. He was bad through and through.
So the second journey for the second key was one of the great, what we couldn't tell you before. They go into the movie The Shining, like the audience erupted, and it's one of my favorite horror films, and I found it really great. And they pay it so much respect. They make it just as creepy as the original, sometimes even creepier, where the naked lady turns into a fucking
zombie.
Grotesque demonic zombie, and she's going crazy while the lights are flickering, and I'm like, wow, this film has some darker sides to it, so I was like, well done. Now I'm glad they didn't whip out like a fucking Jack Nicholson CGI character. I'm so happy they stayed away from that, where you never really see him. You see him, but you only see parts of him, and the parts that matter, the axe, his menacing boot and foot in the snow, stuff like that. So, great. And then the final challenge was playing all these Atari video games, and they couldn't really figure out how to beat it.
Or which game it was.
Yeah, and it turned out to be a reference to the first Easter egg ever in video games, which was an Atari game called like Adventures, where the Easter egg was just enjoying playing. It wasn't about beating the game. It was just going around searching, exploring everything until you found just this random thing. And if you take the random thing back to the beginning, then you see the creative director's name and the designer's name. And it unlocked the actual Easter egg for the whole business. So yeah, fantastic concept, executed really, really well. Let me pause here. And I'm going to go and tack on some other things to the review, and another thing, just to talk about if I can use it. Okay. Sure. And another thing. Okay, before we go to the spoiler section, I was talking in the spoiler section. And I was like, you know what? We kind of missed some of this, and no spoilers, but I did want to talk a little bit about how the creator of the Oasis just this precious old man, and I totally fell in love with this character.
Yeah, he's great.
And this eccentric attitude, you're like, okay, I know people like that, and you just loved him. So every time he was on the screen, you were just enthralled by his performance.
Oh yeah, totally.
You liked it?
Oh yeah. He actually reminds me of Steve Jackson a whole lot, actually,
Yeah.
because I've met Steve Jackson, and I didn't know that it was him at first. He was like, hey, come here. I have somebody to introduce you
If
to.
you don't know Steve Jackson Games from another Austin, Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
He makes a lot of board games.
He is a little awkward, but he seemed exactly like this guy, where it was like
socially
that brain in
Yeah.
there. Let me just pick at it a little bit. Come on,
Yeah.
I loved it.
It was
great.
really, really cool. And then some messages of how you working together, and I think it's a really good message. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside in the real world. You can form friendships through the internet just as strongly as you can in the real world. And then they also managed, I didn't expect this, and I didn't even think about it, but I'm glad they did it. that they tie into how it's also not a good idea to always be
immersed,
connected,
yeah.
be
No,
immersed.
yeah.
You have to engage with the real world, and so I'm glad that they stuck that message in. So and another thing is what I wanted to say is that we had a great supporting cast. And a great message overall for gamers and for regular moviegoers. Okay, that's it. This is the real end. Back to the spoilers. Okay, so go ahead. Somebody bring up the next spoiler.
What do you guys think?
No,
of this
Erica.
Gremlins!
Erica! Gremlins!
Gremlins! Okay, so this is the part where, Spielberg is going through the final cutscenes for some of these, and there's so much in these, in this movie and everywhere, that he didn't even notice that they had snuck gremlins in until he was approving the final cutscene. He goes, hey, wait a second.
And there were multiple times where they had Gremlins references, where we see the box that the Mogwai comes in, there's Gremlins on screen, there's other things. When there was technical difficulties, like actual in the theaters, like, is this like another Gremlins thing? It's like,
no, that would have been too much.
But
if they ground the film to a halt. So as we watched the film, there was technical difficulties. And during the climax, the sound cut out when the orb exploded with power. And at first I thought it was like, oh, they're doing the Star Wars thing where the sound, because it was so powerful but it actually blew the speakers or something. And then there was no sound, and you could clearly tell when they're like, oh, and they're charging. Yeah. Nothing was going on. They stopped the film. 5-10 minutes later, they restarted. They go through that same sequence, and again the sound cuts out, and everybody's like, oh. But finally, they did it a third time, and I actually think it's actually awesome that this happened because since the audience was so hyped up, the second time it happened, we were providing the laser effects. We were going pew 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 as they were firing, as the two forces were converging. But that third time, when the sound finally kicked in, everybody was so happy that they could finish the film because they were worried, are they going to kick us out? Is the thing corrupted on a USB drive? But so when he raises his hand, and then everybody charges. The audience, I don't know, maybe I started it or something. I was just screaming. I was like, ah! And the whole audience screamed. So it was like we were running down the mountain, too.
Very natural for us to just holler at the screen.
It was it was amazing. So that was a really great experience. It probably heightened our rating a little.
What was nice about it is we got to watch the same 5-second intro to the battle over and over. And every single time I watched the same screen, I saw a new character. It's like, that's Spawn. There's a Joker. That's definitely He-Man.
There's a little Hello Kitty.
There's a Hello Kitty over there. There's definitely Battletoads. There's a whole troop. Everyone from Halo. Everyone.
I loved that part. So more Easter egg talk. Now, they got all the references amazing. You tell that they're big fans of Gundam. If you're a big fan of Gundam, you're gonna love this. You saw that in the trailer a little bit, but that's only a tease. It's great. But they made 2 mistakes. Okay, if you want to get nitpicky, actually, so I'm gonna pull out my So Aliens is my favorite film, and she pulls out a pulse rifle during the climax, and I'm like, oh yes, I can't wait to hear the iconic pulse rifle sound. Then instead it's now the gun sounded fantastic. It sounded amazing. And it may have sounded like that in some of the video games, but it's actually not the way pulse rifles should sound. It lacked a little bit of that reverb echo that happens right after you release the trigger. There's this iconic sound that was missing, and I hope they fix that for the DVD because that bothered me. Excuse me. And then also, I think the holy hand grenade, the entire point of the holy hand grenade in Monty Python was the fact that it explodes, at a very precise count of seconds. But maybe that's why they threw the joke out the window because was it on 4, 3, 2?
No.
So I wanted to know. I wanted to count exactly how many seconds, but I was just so enthralled by it, I wasn't counting. So somebody needs to see if the holy hand grenade was appropriate to its film accurate lore. Did anybody notice any other mistakes?
I didn't see any mistake.
The DeLorean was fantastically recreated. Oh, Mechagodzilla. I had not seen that design of Mechagodzilla. Perhaps this is the design, a discarded design from Toho, or maybe we'll see this version of Mechagodzilla in the future, or the animated Godzilla on Netflix. Highly recommend you see it. Maybe part 2 is that Mechagodzilla, or maybe, I mean, there are 31 Godzilla films, so maybe he is a design in there. You're gonna have to challenge me on that.
We're gonna have to watch this a lot of times because there was like Mech Warrior things in there that were amazing. Like just seeing in that big.
There were, and not only Mech Warrior, there were other robot designs where I'm like, I recognize that, but I can't tell what game that was from. So, so many good things. Somebody needs to make a list.
There was a really great use of the F-bomb. They got one, and it was
there was profanity in it.
Yeah,
and it was multiple. There was a shit. There was a fuck.
Yeah, but you only got one F word.
One fuck and one shit.
One fuck and one shit. Yes.
But go ahead.
Oh well,
we're in the spoiler section.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good. I don't even want to. Spoil
All right, fuck it.
Like we'll go watch the film.
Fuck it.
Yeah,
and
it's
great.
Fuck it. Yeah. And it was the cast's favorite part of when they got asked afterwards, like, what's your favorite?
I'm gonna show that. Y'all stop spoiling that fucking section so it can be awesome and people can watch that for the first time. Yeah. Erica, any cool?
I fucking love the Iron Giant.
Oh,
that was awesome. I knew it was there because of the trailer, but seeing him there was awesome.
Because that film made me cry, and you know why it made me cry, right? Not only was it an amazing movie,
it made me cry too. And
you know
Superman,
how much
Superman!
And what Iron Giant was thinking and feeling as he heroically, sacrificed.
Okay,
well,
so
I won't spoil. We're in the spoilers.
Spoilers. Oh no, the Iron Giant.
Okay, I've got to admit, one of my other favorite parts was the whole you don't know who people are on the other side of the screen and everything. And as somebody who had not actually read the book, I was not expecting his best friend to be a chick, and I loved that.
Yeah,
he was like,
I loved it.
It could be some random dude named Charles or Chucky.
She totally subverts your expectations. And I thought they were gonna do something stupid where like, oh, she's a hot chick too, and maybe there should be a love triangle and this and that, but no, she looks nothing like you think she would. And a lot of the characters in the film, they don't look like your typical Hollywood, freaking hotties or whatever. And so it was a diverse cast of characters. Though they did kind of put, but it's not racist to say, well, they gave the Japanese guy all of sort of the Japanese things where he was really good at martial arts. He loved Gundams, but that's not racist. And I hope people don't point that, well, you had to do that. Well, yes, that's where Gundam and gunplay comes from. Gunpla, And so don't be an idiot and, say stupid shit like that. So I thought it was great, culture's coming from, I don't know what the younger 11-year-old kid, they kind of, I mean,
they were so much like more part of the story in the book than they were in the film.
He was sidelined. He literally was I'm 11 years old. That was another small weak point of the film, that all of his jokes were, I'm 11 years old. Like, get over it.
Yeah, we understand.
And so, but he had more to do in the book.
A ton. It's not that it was that much of a problem, but they did a lot of cool shit in the book, and they did some really cool stuff in the movie, like really cool stuff in the movie. Yeah. But you saw so little of them that I wish you saw more of what all the.
And the reason why we're not telling you exactly how the quests differentiate from the book is because we want you to read that audiobook or listen to the audiobook because it's a good one, and I think you'll like it.
Read the normal book. It's fast.
It's a smaller novel.
It's a normal size.
No, it's one of those books that a lot of people are like, I didn't put it down. It's like you'll just sit there and you'll just like thumb through it because it's a lot of lists of TV shows from the 80s, and you're like, I get it. Cool. I get it, MacGyver again.
A lot of the jokes worked. The corporate asshole has his fucking password right there. It's like, what is it, Bossman 69? And they use that to sort of hack into his machine and create a virtual reality of his office. I loved it. I mean, the quests they went on here were super clever. I was like, this had to come from the book because that's a clever book idea. But apparently none of those quests were the same as the ones in the book. So I enjoyed it. Thought it was quite good. Though another sort of excuse me is, where the fuck is the police in this goddamn world? They show up right at the end, and you're like, really? now, motherfuckers, the corporation's blowing people's houses up, trying to murder this kid, and the police didn't immediately get alerted. Okay, we need security on the winner right now until he finishes his quest, because I'm sure the cops of the world would be fans of the Oasis too.
Well, they don't know who he is, and they.
Okay.
It's something
well, the corporation finds out who he is.
Yeah, it was explained in the book. Not that it's an excuse. It's like they're really dangerous. The stacks are really, really dangerous, and they blow up all the time because people have propane tanks, and so there's accidents in the stacks all the time. They did a really good job.
They did more of a job of kind of hiding.
They didn't discuss it at all in the movie. And actually, when I was watching it, it's like, wow, it would make it you would believe it more if they're like, hey, look, I can make you disappear, and no one will ever miss you because people in your neighborhood die all of the time. And the bad guy says that a bunch of times. So
yeah, and they might have said it once, but it didn't
didn't
resonate quite. Okay, well, good. That's one of the weaker points, you know. So that's why you could probably end up at an 8 or a 9. But I think overall, because we've had such few great video game films, because the way the pacing in the film and the entertainment in it from Steven Spielberg, I think that's what elevates it to being like 9. It's a 9.
It's really fun.
It's really great. So
I don't give a whole lot of movies 10s, so I just want to throw that out there. But
Yeah.
I still really fucking love this movie.
Yeah,
I was not expecting to, honestly. Going in with like, didn't read it, you know, the trailer wasn't as good, and you actually get in, you sit there, and the entire time you're just fixated on the screen, like, wait, go back.
I was ready to hate it.
Yeah, and I was ready to hate it too, and it actually turned us. And if it can turn Alex and me, you know, that's a good sign of, you know, be like, noses up at it, and all right. I wanted to play in this world, though I know if they made a video game version of this film, they'd fuck it up, you know. And it would be a nightmare trying to get all those, you know, movie licenses and video game licenses
did a really good
together.
job getting licenses, so being able to show everything.
It's kind of the first time, besides our miniatures game, that that Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter are in the same realm together, or that cross over a little bit. Now they don't fight each other, but that would have been really cool. But they're in the same film, and just love all the references to Superman. So yeah, film after my heart. Aliens, Superman, Star Trek,
Batman.
Back to the Future,
Batman,
Jurassic Park, Batman, everything. All right, see you guys on the next Angry Joe Show. Bye guys.